race. Of course, that team will expand to 3 cars, and we head to Mount Panorama with James Hinchcliffe and Alexander Rossi joining the team in a wildcard entry at Walkinshaw Andretti United. This is race number 1 for the BNT NZ Touring Cars, a non-championship round here this weekend. Nick Chester starting from pole position alongside Simon Evans. Paul Radisich is in the field. The story for me yesterday, Andy Jones, was that 007 car starting at 13 of Nick Ross. It was an input shaft that paid to his qualifying, and he'll start from the back of the field. They've had 1 lap to get some heat into these tyres. It's a rolling start. The guys in the front will be awesome, but you wait till you hear and see the Mustang of Paul Radisich on the inside of row number 2. They're nice and stacked, and we're underway here in race number 1 at Pukekohe Park as the front guys spread out back into single file to turn number 1 with Chester taking the lead, Simon Evans second, and Radisich up in the 3rd place.
And while everybody at the front looks okay, the Nick Ross Altima, Radisich has gone around on the exit of turn 4. Looked like he did that all on his own. Just cracked that throttle, trying to hold on to the rear of the car. We'll see if we can get a replay of that and see if there was any contact from behind, as it looks like Edgell is now slowing as well. But back to the Nick Ross Altima, I feel like there's an issue going on there. There is some smoke coming out of the back of that car. Is it residual oil from where they've replaced that drive shaft that broke in that car? They would have had to take the differential out of it. Hopefully it's just a little bit of overrun or overfill in that department, and he'll be able to race on, but there was quite a lot of smoke on the start.
Barely got a lap in qualifying here yesterday before it stopped. And the big story is the Collins Motorsport team. There's the crew down in pit lane. Paul Radisich that spun at turn number 3, so he's going to have to come from the back of the field here, but with plenty of time on his side. A 16-lap race. This is lap number 2. You're watching the 2 guys that have been in red-hot form since the very first practice session yesterday morning. Nick Chester out in front, and the return of Simon Evans for that when you get number 4 Holden.
Great shot of Simon Evans' car coming off turn 4, getting on the throttle. Watch the rear of this car as both guys go through turn 5. As he tries to crack the throttle, you see the rear hopping across the car. So much grip available to Evans. This looks like Edgell making his way into the pit lane. That left rear wheel is got a lot of toe in going on and a fair amount of wobble on it. So has Edgell and Radisich made contact at turn 4, which resulted in Radisich going around and Edgell touring the pit lane.
Well, he started from that 2nd row, and that's the end of the race really, with him going 1 lap down now as the leaders come on by, and they're 4 seconds clear of John Midgley, who steps up from Central Muscle Cars competition this year into the BNT V8s. Like we said, a non-championship round. Their first round will come up in November at Pukekohe Park, but they'll finish their championship when we come back in April next year. Save the date, April 24 to 26, when the ITM Auckland Super Sprint comes back to Pukekohe in the 2020 Virgin Australia Supercars Championship.
Interesting to watch these 2 guys here in Chester and Evans make their way through turn 2 and 3. Now here's a replay of what happened on the first lap on the exit of turn 4. And as much as it pains me to say this, it looks like Radisich has done that all on his own. But what's happened to Edgell in the background? So it doesn't look like at this point he's got any issues with that left rear. Perhaps it's happened further down on the approach to turn 5, or whether it's just a mechanical failure on the toe link in the back of that car. So there's that smoke that I alluded to before coming out of the back of Ross's car. Might be just a little leaky fitting on that diff housing.
It's up to 5th position already from near back of the field. 13th place for the Nissan Altima for Total Lubricants. At the moment he's got Sean Varney in the BMW just behind, and Brad Ladford in the ITM Falcon running back in 7th position right now. Field is quite strung out when you go past the first 2 guys. There is Nick Ross from the Avis drone cam into turn number 4. A big long run down the back straight here at Pukekohe Park.
Wow, that Avis drone cam shot really brilliantly done to follow Ross all the way through turns 2, 3 and 4 and up this back straight. How good is Pukekohe looking at the moment?
And in the background you heard the sound, and there it is, of Radisich on the charge. This car, folks, Roush Fenway Power, produces about 900 horsepower. It's been detuned this weekend to 700 horsepower. The rev range is around 11,000, and you can hear it above every other car around this Pukekohe Park Raceway, and he's wringing its neck as he makes his way back through the field. He's up to 9th place.
And we know he can steer. He will absolutely be wringing his neck, trying to get on that throttle earlier than he has before, making sure that he doesn't rotate again anywhere. He will be very disappointed with himself. The battle still rages at the front here, though. Nolts, Chester with a little handy lead over Evans. Evans has just set the race's fastest lap, 1:02.4.
They really are disappearing down the road. 13 seconds back to Midgley, and here we go. Chester defensive at the Husqvarna hairpin. Simon Evans, a 28-year-old from Auckland who returns to the series. He's been across racing in the Jaguar I-Pace E-Trophy last season. We saw him in Australia a few seasons ago with the Super Black team in a Dunlop Super 2 series. Love that shot, across the Dunlop curb cam and through to complete another lap. So it's really a race between these two. Midgley and Hughes have got a good battle going on for 3rd and 4th. But we keep an eye on the likes of Ross and Paul Radicic, who are running 5th and 8th respectively. Lap 6 of 16.
And that shot there tells the story, Nolts. That's what I spoke about 1 lap ago. Evans's car is able to carry so much more corner speed through 1, 2, 3. As soon as we get onto these straights, Chester's car, the straight line engineering, also known as engine power, is much more in favour of Chester than it is Evans. But the pressure is on here. Evans all over the back of Chester. What's he got? Using all of the road on the entry. There's that hop in the rear of the car from Evans that I was talking about. So much grip.
These guys lapping in the 102s, while these guys are lapping in the 105s. This is 3rd and 4th on the circuit. John Midgley in car 19. And Lance Hughes, who was teammate to Jack Smith last year, went on to win the BNT V8 Touring Car Series. And Hughes himself had a great second half of the year last year. Let's go for a ride for a lap around this Pukekohe circuit.
We'll watch the form of Lance Hughes here through the second last corner. Oh, Midgley, a bit late on the turn in. Took a long time to find the apex at the final corner to come up over the hill and down this front straight. Fast turn 1 here at Pukekohe. Nice and smooth on the steering wheel from Hughes. Down a couple of gears, lots of curb at turn 2. Floats the car nicely. Turns 3 and 4 are almost one big corner. You could see there the steering input, it didn't change. He's connecting both. And then once you get to the apex at turn 4, it's crack that throttle, pluck some gears all the way up to turn 5. And his lad's having a little look here. He's very narrow on the approach to turn 5. Wide on the exit, tight at turn 6. That's the Anton Di Pasquale way. Carry a bit more corner speed through turn 5. Hard on the brakes at the hairpin. Little lock up from Midgley up ahead. Lance looks like he's got more pace in this car. Needs to find a way past Midgley. A little bit of pressure for Midgley.
And Radicic has come to a standstill to break away from that in-car shot. And now the big Mustang has come to a stop, and that looks like on the back straight here, just down from where he had to spin at the start of the race. So that charge through the field has come up naught in this race. And with 2 more races to come tomorrow, expect to see the Rat in flying form to pick up the battle still for 3rd and 4th. They are some 21 seconds behind Chester and Evans.
And so this is the battle that we were just on board with. Lance Hughes in the 84, the red car here. Midgley in the white Ford behind. So while we were on board with Lance, we were seeing the back of Midgley's car. So there's been a position swap there while we picked up the Radicic Mustang that has pulled over on the back straight here.
It's the car that Shane Van Gisbergen drove in the recent past. Produced about 700 horsepower as well, and John stepping in from the Central Muscle Cars. And here's the replay of what happened right at the start-finish line in front of our commentary position while we saw the Radicic car come into a stop. And here it is again.
And it did feel like Hughes had the upper hand here and a little bit of pace up his sleeve, but it's one thing to have speed, you've got to get by. And now that I make mention of that, exactly the same scenario is playing out here. The only difference is that the Midgley and Hughes entries are in a similar class. Likewise for these guys, but the rules and the freedoms allowed to both Chester and Evans to build those cars, you pretty much do anything you want, and that's why they make their speed in 2 different ways. How's the rear wings on the back of these cars?
Yeah, no shortage of downforce on that second car.
You could double them up and use them as a dining table as well. They're so big.
Had a few upgrades this car before the start of this season with the traction control system that's been put in, ABS brakes, and now Radicic is back to life, so one would suspect, it's wrong to assume things, maybe electrical with that car. See Lance Hughes bouncing across the curb there, the Hamilton asphalt entry. It's down the turn 2-3 chicane.
There's a massive amount in the timing of that, because you see Lance, he hit that front edge of the curb at turn 2, using it almost like an up ramp for a jump. And then you want to make sure that you use enough curb that when the car goes up like that, it doesn't come down in the back edge of the curb, because if it does that, you end up asking too much of the damper and asking it to compress harder while it's already, you know, doing its job. So there's a lot in the timing of how hard you hit the curb, how much you float across it, and making sure you land on the down ramp and you carry enough speed to be able to do it. That was a great shot.
Done effectively, it looks amazing.
Yeah, when it's not done effectively, it generally hydraulics the damper and tries to fire all the oil out the side of the body.
And it's a gravel trap waiting for you on the other side too.
Yeah.
Lap 11, just like that, we're in the closing stages of the race. 102.4 is the fastest lap of the race for Simon Evans that you're watching in second position. Nick Chester leads this race, and Evans has tried everything, and he's hoping for lap traffic. There hasn't been too much so far. It's a car a bit further up the road here now that might just play a part in this race.
Evans has put the pressure on Chester this whole race. Chester, a couple of little mistakes, but nothing big enough to give Evans a run or an opportunity to get past. This is really intense and great motor racing. Cannot explain how difficult it is to race when you've got two variables in the way you're making your speed. You've got to drive your car effectively. Fortunately, though, I'd say that Evans has got a bit more pace there in terms of corner speed, but when we get to turn 4, Chester's taking some of that away from him. Now, here's this Nick Ross car that I mentioned. Smoke still coming out of the back of it. With 5 laps remaining, is he going to be able to greet the checkered flag?
Certainly not hurting the straight line speed of the Nissan Altima as he comes down to turn number 5 right now. Keep in mind, he started from 13th in this race. Behind them, 57 of Hennepoff, who spun just here on the way out to the dummy grid for this race. Cruising around there back in 11th position. As this fascinating battle at the front continues. It's been like this since the very first practice session yesterday morning at Pukekohe Park Raceway. Nick Chester, car number 14, was a former Super GT champion back in 2006. He's been doing this gig for a while now, the New Zealand V8 series, and coming up to the Dale ITM entry. He's been shown the blue flag, and it's in a really awkward position here.
Really awkward position, and now Doyle's out on the outside.
That was lucky. Had 2 wheels out in the dirt. The leaders get clean racetrack. But more lap traffic ahead here. And they're coming up to lap 6th place. Sean Varney just ahead in this race in the BMW.
And this is where Evans will be able to be cheeky. There's 2 cars up ahead. This will play in, and you can see Chester just making sure the guys up ahead know that they're coming at them. He doesn't want to be held up at all. Huge commitment on the inside at turn 5, but this is going to bottleneck Chester at turn 6. Likewise for Evans, he's had to go the long way, so that's negated any problems there for either party. This is such good racecraft. This is the bit I love. You've got to look so far up the road. Try and time this correctly.
Go past Radicic, who stopped again, but it's come back to life. The blue Mustang, the background is shot now. We can see Evans closer than ever as they come underneath the ITM bridge to complete another lap. There's more traffic ahead as he zigs and zags across the circuit, looking for a move here through the high-speed sweeper at turn number 1. 3 laps remaining, and Chester under massive fire here.
Chester was held up at the final corner there by lap traffic. Caught him at a really awkward spot right at the apex of the final corner, and he had to just hold off getting on the throttle, slowed his run down a little bit. It actually gave momentum favour to Evans. Here we go. This is what I was just talking about. So when you're in that scenario, you go, do I get on the throttle? Is the lap traffic going to go to the right? And if it doesn't, then you're going to make contact, and that allowed Evans to get the run, but he couldn't do anything with it. Chester going ultra defensive. Still 3 laps left, still plenty of traffic, and a huge smile on your face, Knowles, because this is interesting.
It backs your claim up. It's the driving expertise and the art of weaving your way through lap traffic with a car right in front of you at the same time. And some of these cars are several seconds slower a lap. They've got clean track for now. 2 laps remaining. Race 1 of the BNT New Zealand touring cars, the non-championship round here at Pukekohe Park Raceway, where they are treating this like it's grand final day.
And it was all smiles from the Chester camp down in the pit lane there. More lap traffic again, hurting Nick Chester. Evans has got to run up the inside, but we know from what we've seen that the Chester car has so much straight line speed, just had enough overlap, forced Evans all the way to the white line. That's okay.
This is great. With a change of direction, and now the short run up to the turn 8 hairpin. You watch that Chester's car park down the middle. He does, forcing Evans to go high, but he'll have the better run, the better exit out the turn 8 hairpin. It'll be 1 lap to go here at Pukekohe Park. This is far from done in the BNT New Zealand touring cars.
And this will be so much fun for these 2 guys that are duking it out, boxing on, motorsport style.
All the while, they're 40 seconds ahead of 3rd place and 4th place, Lance Hughes and John Midgley. They won't go a lap down, but everybody up to 5th position has been. On this, the final lap. Can Chester hold on? Man, he's driven well on this race.
Sounded like a lazy shift there on the exit of turn 4 for Chester, but it doesn't look like it's hurt the straight line. Once again, it's in favour of Chester on the run up the long back straight. Hit the apex. Oh, missed the apex for Evans. Pushing hard.
Down to the final hairpin. Been a fascinating race between these 2. There's been a good battle for 3rd and 4th as well. And Nick Ross has rewarded that team with a top 5 result here today. But Nick Chester, fast in practice yesterday, great in qualifying, and held back. Massive pressure from Simon Evans to come past and pick up the win in race number 1. Ended up being the biggest margin of the race as well, just under 1 second. And to the applause of this great vocal crowd here in New Zealand, Nick Chester will collect the win ahead of Simon Evans, but it's a long way back to that battle between 3rd and 4th.
With Hughes continuing to hold that upper hand over Midgley from Nick Ross. Great drive from Nick Ross. He was able to continue on, but this battle at the front, Knowles, and just the racecraft to read the traffic by Chester was brilliant.
Yeah, tiniest of margins, wasn't it? But a massive margin back to 3rd position. Lance Hughes, John Midgley on debut, looking good for his first run in the championship this year. Nick Ross from the back to 5th place. Then Sean Varney, Brad Ladbrokes, Rob Wallace, Paul Radicic, who crawled around in the end to finish in 9th place, and Darryl Clark finishing in 10th, but some 2 laps down. Tim Edgell went back to the pits early, and Braden Phillips didn't get to turn many laps in this race. The teenager finishing back there in 14th. The highlights, well, we remarked it's not a championship round, but the guys in the BNT New Zealand Touring Car Championship really took the gloves off in race number 1, didn't they?
And you wouldn't know about it, would you? Because the way they were racing out there, you would have sworn this was for championship points. Paul Radicic making that little unforced error on the exit of turn 4, all on his own, but we would learn as the race went on that there was a couple of gremlins that had crept into that car since this morning.
Back tomorrow, of course, for the 2nd and 3rd race. This battle that went on and on and on. This was Nick Ross. Didn't see much of the Total Lubricants entry for this and Ultima, but did have wisps of smoke during that race still, didn't it?
And we saw this great shot of Lance Hughes navigating his way through turn 2 beautifully. This battle, though, Knowles, I absolutely loved it. Likewise, this one with Hughes, we were on board just before this